This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com with a big review of the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. I do have Piper here, but I'm not going to lift her up because, as I've documented this week, she's doing better today. But sadly, she had an injury this week stemming from a piece of cheese lodged in her throat that she had to have basically the Heimlich maneuver put on her to get the cheese out, and ended up with some rib damage. And from me doing the baby CPR that I know, sadly I don't know dog CPR. She was able to be resuscitated enough to go to the vet, and she's on medication now. And today she's walking for the first time by herself since the injury a couple days ago. So thank you to the people that donated to the GoFundMe for her. I appreciate it, but I will jump into the news now. But just to show you guys like how much I had to do CPR on the poor little thing, I literally chewed the skin off my niece. I was on my niece so long waiting for my ex to come to get her to the 24-hour vet. So it's been one of the worst weeks of my life. Drinking out of all my kids have 4 paws cup tonight because she's probably the closest thing I'm ever going to have to a kid. But let me jump into the news. There's some talk this week in the Observer that apparently if CM Punk can finalize getting out of this situation with AEW, if they can make the no-compete deal work or get out of this contract without a no-compete, there might be some interest in having Steve Austin against CM Punk at WrestleMania. Since AEW did give him a boost, he was off TV for a while, and he's been in the news. And I don't see that CM Punk would have an issue losing to Austin because Austin's just a major legend. And as Dave Meltzer writes, he already beat Kevin Owens last year. So to have him fight another guy that the mainstream people don't really know, like an Austin Theory or a lower card guy that everyone knows he's going to beat, wouldn't be quite as interesting. And then he could also wrestle a guy like Brock Lesnar, but Brock Lesnar would likely win that because it wouldn't make sense since Brock Lesnar's to lose that unless Steve Austin was going to wrestle on the roster more regularly. But also Brock Lesnar is a bigger guy, and not to say that Lesnar wouldn't take care of Austin, but with all of his injuries, a smaller guy like Punk would be a better opponent. It would be good for Punk too, and they could probably get him on a part-time contract or a one-time deal. So I actually agree with that. There's also talk, as I discussed last night, that apparently Logan Paul and John Cena both have interest in facing each other on WrestleMania, and that would be good. Although I also mentioned on that, I mean, I would see that John Cena would have a problem putting Logan Paul over, and that match would actually be good for both of them. But I think if Paul lost to Reigns and then Cena again, it would be hard to take Logan Paul as a serious contender for the next famous guy he were to fight. And I know he's under contract with WWE for a while. And I do think, by the way, that's a good signing. Someone asked me last night, like, how would I book WWE and all this? Well, I don't even know most of the guys that they have under contract because I just don't find it interesting enough to watch. But my hiring policy might not even be the same as them. I might not hire mostly people that have no wrestling experience, for instance. Um, so it wouldn't be fair for me to even do a critique like that. But wrestlers definitely aren't the same. I mean, apparently there's something in the Observer here. We saw the picture. I guess Kevin Owens wrestled Austin Theory in Madison, Wisconsin last week. And the picture from their match showed that it didn't look like there was too many people in the crowd. But he's got a sprained ankle, and this was last weekend. Sprained MCL. He's been rehabbing it all week, and they're not sure if he's going to make the Survivor Series or not. I mean, I remember, didn't the guy just fight in the UFC with a dislocated shoulder in a real fight? I think this is one of the reasons why people just aren't interested in today's wrestlers, because hearing stuff like this is just like they're not as tough. I mean, I remember with a sprained ankle wrestling or playing rugby the very next day. I remember competing in the 2012 Olympic trials in Greco-Roman wrestling in a torn meniscus, which I had torn earlier that month. I wasn't even paid for either of those, but for a guy that's making $2 or $3 million a year with a sprain, to not know if he'll be able to compete in a couple weeks, I just can't. To me, that's just like, these guys are wimps. Like, I know that what's his name in AEW had a concussion. The cowboy guy, I can't even remember his name. He took a clothesline, tried to do a flip, landed on his head, and it was the end of the world that he had a concussion. But in UFC, how many people have a concussion? And now we've been hearing, it's even in the Observer this week, that AEW's business is pretty flat right now. But it's like, wrestlers used to be the toughest in the world, and now it seems like minor injuries are the end of the world. And I've had a lot of concussions. I've had a huge amount of concussions. So I'm not saying concussions are not serious. I just don't understand how a guy that's supposed to be a world champion level athlete gets a concussion and it seems to be the end of the world. Where my boss's daughter had a concussion from tripping in volleyball like a couple months ago, I remember. Like, I don't know. The toughness and the grittiness seems to be gone. There are still some tough wrestlers like Lesnar and a lot of the old school guys, but overall, it just seems to be missing. Bret Hart, I guess, spoke about Shawn Michaels and says he wishes the screw job never happened, even though he ended up making a lot of money in WCW and then coming back to WWE, doing an angle about the screw job that made him a lot of money. But he says he wouldn't have had to wrestle Bill Goldberg if it wasn't for the screw job. And he's still blaming Bill Goldberg for the stroke. Someone actually made a point the other day that, and you guys can put it in the comments, was Bill Goldberg really known for hurting people in wrestling? Because mistakes happen in wrestling. I mean, Jake the Snake Roberts talks about the Dynamite Kid getting stiffed by Bret Hart when Bret was first starting, and Jinder Mahal, who was very close to Bad News Allen, who actually they bashed pretty heavily in the Stampede Wrestling Tales from the Crypt, or Tales from the Dark Side. No, Tales from the Territories documentary recently. Bad News was on the record saying Bret was stiffing him all the time when Bret first started, and Goldberg was new to the business. But he really takes the jabs at Goldberg whatever he can. So, whatever. There is new stuff, and he's a multimillionaire, that they can do for concussions too, as far as stem cells and that type of stuff. So that might be worth looking into research for Bret on ways to deal with those brain injuries with the advancement of modern medicine. But people always will say money can't buy you happiness. How many interviews do you read with Brett where he isn't complaining? Honestly, like this guy's a multi millionaire. But that's proof right there. Money does not buy you happiness. AEW, as I was mentioning, did their lowest rating in a long time this past week for their go home show to their Full Gear pay-per-view, 0.28 rating. Apparently, the Dynamite taping in Bridgeport, Connecticut this week actually had a good crowd, 5,800, but it was very quiet. NXT did a 0.17 rating. Rampage did a 0.11 rating. Raw in Louisville did a 0.44 rating, 6,900 in attendance. SmackDown last week did a 0.58 rating from Indianapolis. They had over 9,000 fans there, but apparently they filmed a tribute to the troops after SmackDown. So there was a lot of free tickets given away to military members, which contributed to the amount of people that were at the event. Rampage, 0.11. Impact was up a little bit, 0.02. But apparently they've been buying ads on DirecTV during both Raw and Dynamite to help with their viewership. Women of Wrestling, 0.06. New Japan Pro Wrestling, 0.01, about as low as you can go. Tales from the Territories, which was the Portland episode, 0.02. Which, by the way, if you didn't see my update, I will be part of the Dark Side of the Ring third season, the Abdullah the Butcher episode, and they are going to be recording my part in the not too distant future, right here in my apartment. So looking forward to that. AEW Full Gear is tonight, and Meltzer says that all indicators for the promotion show that business has not been very good lately, especially considering their go-home show for the pay-per-view was only 0.28. Their lowest rating since June 15th. Tickets for the show in Newark, which is the New York market, huge population, has 11,425 tickets out, which is pretty damn good. Apparently, they're cutting back from the 15 matches they usually have on pay-per-view to 11. And they're planning on going with a 4-hour show. I remember when WrestleMania 4 was 4 hours and it was 2 VHS tapes. And that was like a big deal. But they didn't do that again. And I don't know why, especially with people's attention span these days. There's so many extremely long pay-per-views. Like, why? Like, the way I think, I mean, his dad's a multi-billionaire, but wouldn't you rather have to pay less people, make the card shorter, and the matches more high quality, and then your profits more because you're not paying for 15 or 11 matches on a card? Why do you need more than 7 or 8 really good matches? I don't understand why you guys need so many matches. Apparently, the network that AEW is on lost money in the last quarter, lost $2.3 billion. Warner Brothers Discovery. So as far as AEW's renewal, Meltzer says they're really going to have to boost ratings towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, to get a big increase in rights fees. I mean, they keep hiring all these small flippy guys, and they all appeal to the same audience that is already watching them, the smart marks. And again, why do they have these dark shows and elevation shows with all these guys that nobody really cares about, that just waters down the product? Why bring in Ric Flair? but he might not be able to because his WWE contract. Bring in, like, hire 10 or 15 less of these flippy guys and bring in Goldberg. I don't know. Bring in people that people know if you want to get your ratings up, because it seems like they're not really expanding their audience out of the smart marks. And when they first started, they said they were going to be the old school realistic style of wrestling, and they quickly developed into something that was even worse than WWE for new school related stuff. They have good stuff like Chris Jericho, and from what I understand, John Moxley is doing good, and they got some other good guys, but there's too much silliness on that show, and too much spot fest and matches where they don't even make tags. People wrestling while flipping pizzas, and I don't know. It's not my thing. I'll watch segments here and there, but the last segment I watched was the Paige segment. Paige is wrestling tonight under her real name, Soraya. She had a decent interactive segment. I actually found Paige's in-ring interview with Britt Baker more entertaining than this MJF William Regal thing, which was over 10 minutes long of them just talking in the ring. I don't remember in the 80s when wrestling was booming, segments where everyone just stood in the ring and talked for over 10 minutes in every episode. They got it on WWE too with Roman Reigns' group. I don't think they talk for as long as they do in AEW, but it's like so repetitive. I mean, these are some of the reasons why I think people tune out. It's just boring. Apparently, Conan, who's 58 now, is having kidney issues. He recently said the AEW backstage environment he found very childish. By the way, I don't have anything against AEW. I don't watch WWE or AEW or much of anything other than if something stands out to me. I recently skimmed through an entire episode of NWA, which we'll get into them later, but I only like to watch the interesting stuff and nothing. I skimmed through the Logan Paul Roman Reigns match from Crown Jewel, which was a pretty impressive match. Bobby Lashley wrestled Brock Lesnar on that card, and it was really short, so I didn't even bother watching that because I like Bobby Lashley, and it seemed like they wasted that feud not having it from the start and then just throwing it at a Crown Jewel with a quick victory by Lesnar. But nothing else from Crown Jewel really interested me or made me want to even find out who won. The Portland Wrestling Tales from the Territory this week had Len Denton, Princess Victoria, Bushwhacker Luke, who gave me my Hannibal name, and Mike Masters, who apparently has died since. I did watch a match actually with Mike Masters versus Hulk Hogan just now. I looked it up to see who Mike Masters was, and I did like it. I like the 80s wrestling better than today's. But one thing I noticed is that at that time Hogan was a heel and doing the bear hug for a finish. So remember, bear hug was also superstar Billy Graham's finisher. So he took everything from Billy Graham, almost the pythons, the brother, even the finisher. So, but it was good, and Hogan looked great in that match. If you search up Hogan against Mike Masters. By the way, I did hear from Billy Graham this week because they wanted him on the Dark Side of the Ring episode, but he didn't want to commit to it because his health is too up and down. He doesn't want to set a date and have people travel to Phoenix to do an interview with him, and then he's going through a day where his health is really bad. Mike, thanks for the $2 tip. I don't think either Sags or Bob Holly will do an interview. for $2. If you want me to find out how much it is to interview them and you pay for it, email me at greatnorthwrestling@gmail.com. I'll do that for anybody, and I'll dedicate the interview to them. But there's certain people. I mean, Bob Holly, for the right price, I might, but Sags, I already interviewed Knobs a bunch of times. And Sags was rude to me the couple times I met him in person. So why would I give people that are rude to me paydays unless they're going to really do well with hits? And I'm not sure Sags would. And Mike, I'll take your $2 since I know you're a Piper fan, and take the $2 minus the 30% YouTube takes from the tips and put it towards Mike Piper's medical fund, because her appointment was over $1,000 this week, and she's got 2 follow-up appointments to get her heart checked out, and also the radiology results appointment with a specialist to figure out what's going on inside her body. But let me get back to the news. The Vice documentary on Vince McMahon is going to air December 13th at 9 p.m. This Iron Claw movie about the Von Erichs looks like it's going to be really heavily about the 80s. This movie sounds like it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to that. There was more back and forth regarding Billy Corgan and Nick Aldis this week. Apparently, God. Yeah, okay, there it is. Sorry, it was on the other side of my paper. NWA, they had their Hard Times pay-per-view where Tyrus won on November 12th in LA before 600 fans. Not LA, Louisiana. Chalamet, Louisiana, and I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. 600 fans. That's pretty good. Apparently, a lot of the regular fans, according to Meltzer, gave it negative reviews because they put the title on Tyrus, who's 49, and according to Meltzer, isn't the greatest worker, but he understands that Billy put it on him because he appears on Fox News regularly, and it would give the title more promotion right now than anyone else on their roster, which is true. And apparently Corgan City's aiming for mainstream fans. Meltzer says that's hard to do without a television show. I understand that. So he is doing the best thing he can do. Put it on the guy that has the most mainstream attention. Because I actually, as I said, I watched their latest television show that they taped after that, the night after, or maybe the same day. I don't know. It was from the same arena. And I do like that they have a lot of big guys, a lot of guys that look like wrestlers, but it's not a lot of stars. They got Aaron Stevens. They got looks like Rodney Mack under a mask. Austin Idol, who Billy Corgan really likes, I guess. But yeah, overall, it's a lot of big guys that you wouldn't necessarily want to mess with on their roster. So I did like that. Apparently, Nick Aldis is still bashing them, even though Billy Corgan has publicly said that he's paying him till the end of his contract, which I think he should stop doing. Why bother if he's going to publicly bash your company? David Marquez, who is part of these championship wrestling promotions, including Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and is neutral because he doesn't work with Billy Corgan anymore, said that when he was the interviewer, he could here, I'll quote him. He said, quote, and I'm pretty sure he quoted this directly to Dave. Quote, "For the past few weeks, I've been asked to comment on the Nick Aldis NWA fallout. All I'll say is my dealings with Aldis were not the best. I'm watching him angle for influence within the promotion. I knew he and Billy who I'm 50-50 with, would not last as partners, end quote. And all this apparently told Wrestling Inc. that Corgan goes against what fans want. Well, it's Corgan's company. It's not making any money. I actually researched what they make on YouTube, and maximum, the very best, is like 26,000 a year. And by the way, they have gone up in YouTube subscribers recently, because I follow their YouTube subscribers, and they don't get much from what I can tell in the way of pay-per-view buy. So it's basically his project that he does for fun with his own money that he's not making money on. So let him do whatever the hell he wants. And he gave you the biggest push of your career, and you didn't really move the needle. If you were a needle mover, you'd still be champion, or you would have won the title back. But obviously, you weren't worth whatever he's paying you, or you'd still be in the mix. That's just a fact. And because you're bitching about the only company that pushed you, to me, that's a red flag of other companies to want to hire you, because you weren't a big draw. I don't know when the last time you wrestled. You haven't wrestled for months. WWE seems to be hiring people lately that haven't wrestled for a while. Maybe you'll be on their radar, but I don't see them making you main event talent. So you're not going to be – if you go to AEW, I don't see you as main event talent in AEW either. People just – you're not a needle mover. So I have a feeling he's going to regret bashing Billy Corgan as the years come, because he's only really known for being NWA champion. He had his stuff in Impact Wrestling years ago, but I remember he was having issues with Hogan and Bischoff backstage there too. So he's a backstage annoyance. Anthony Rumble Johnson from the UFC passed away November 13th, reportedly due to hemopathogolic lymphomalacia, HLH. I don't know. It's a rare but very serious disease. Look up HLH if you want to know what it is. I suck at pronunciation. Dana White announced 8 one-hour TV episodes for his Power Slap League that he's doing with the Fertitta brothers. I said it before, for this Power Slap stuff, I don't know why commissions sanction it, if it even is under any fighting commissions, because these people are taking open blows to the head that they aren't allowed to protect. And with all we know about brain injury, I don't know how much they're making. I doubt much. I know some people like to watch it, but the real people making money at this thing is probably the promoters and TV companies. And these guys are getting brain damage for taking unprotected slaps to the head. It just seems to me like one of the dumbest ways to try and get yourself known. Somebody says Steve Austin is a crybaby. I don't know him that well. I talked to him a couple times, but I don't know. I would like to interview him one day. And I think I might one of these days. Young Macho Man and Miss Jackie Shoot interview. Possible. Goober Cheese, this is Dan. Mike D, I would like to interview Mike McGurk-Cornales as well. Bill, very soon. I'm not going to say the exact date, but soon. Joel, CM Punk should never have a job in wrestling ever again. Well, even though he has a bad attitude, and you see the difference between Punk and Aldis is Punk's already become a star, even though he's known by the mainstream people as the UFC jobber type guy. Like, he's already famous. People know who he is. So him against Austin and Punk isn't liked. They want to see Austin beat him up. So I can understand how he would actually draw against Austin. I agree with that would be a good match, to be honest with you. But yeah, I don't know if Tony Khan is going to let him out of the contract. That might actually, the talk of this happening might actually cause CM Punk to go back to AEW, because they might not let him out of the contract, even though the locker room supposedly hates him, but who knows? Johnny says, Piper, yes. I made a video of her I'll put up at the end. I don't want to disturb her because I don't want to, she needs to rest right now. Someone says Steve Austin is a sellout. As I said, I don't know. Who is my favorite guitarist? I'm bad with names, but the Black Sabbath guitarist and the Scorpions guitarist. Today's weather sucks. Yeah, I forgot to mention, actually, the snow and cold weather have come to Canada. It's snowing here in Ottawa, Canada, and the weather's cold. It's really bad. Oh, I'm getting some spam on here. I'd get a lot more viewers if I joined the IP2 network. Okay. I don't even know what that is. And I get quite a lot of views, usually between 3 and 4 million a month. I have over 210 million views on this channel alone. And on Facebook, I have, we get tons. Actually, my news updates and live streams actually get more views on Facebook. And some of our content gets more views on Facebook for whatever reason. Michael says Austin played a terrible employee, but almost never was. Punk played a terrible employee and has been one on numerous occasions. Well, I know Austin actually, like, I know WWE is hard to deal with too, but he did have some behind the scenes issues over the years too that I'm no expert in. Mike D says Rick Martel #1. As I mentioned, WWE took a jab at him the other week. What about, says Brett is still dissing Bill. Yeah, I mean, that was fucking the 90s. Wasn't it in the 90s? And someone said it, like, how many people has he hurt? Accidents happen. Accidents happen. People have given me concussions in wrestling. Maybe it hasn't led to strokes and stuff. But, I mean, well, the dark side of the ring is about the Abdullah the Butcher thing. How often, a lot of people like to say, oh, I take every chance I get to yap about Abdullah Butcher. Honestly, guys, how often do I talk about that? I've moved on from it. If someone's going to do a TV special that's going to bring it to a new audience, sure, why not? But, like, that was a pretty horrendous thing in my life that I've moved on from. And people even say, oh, you post your matches of him on here. Yeah, why not? Never got any money from him. The lawsuits cost me a fortune. So why wouldn't I at least try and get residuals from the matches out of it? Nicholas says another great interview with Mario Mancini. Looking forward to part 3 about Steve Lombardi. I have to admit, I had a phone conversation with Steve Lombardi years ago, and I would say he came off as very arrogant. But when I did the interview with him, I actually liked him. And I saw him at an independent show once in Arnprior, Ontario, in the Ottawa Valley back in like 96. He wrestled Jimmy Snuka as a replacement for Jim Neidhart, who didn't show up for some reason. But I can't really say anything bad about Steve Lombardi anymore, because I thought he was a good guest on the show and I would have him back. Andrew says what Goldberg did was an accident. He apologized multiple times. And by the way, guys like John Lord said he had an ego. I don't doubt that when he first got his push, he did have an ego and stuff. And you have to have an ego to be as big a star as he is. But I don't think that in 2022 he has as much of an ego as he did in the late 90s in WCW. And they did push him, but John Nord said it, and again, I'm in the view business. I'll post what these guys say because it's my job. But someone could be given that same push and not get over. Look at Renegade, the Ultimate Warrior ripoff guy. He never got over. I mean, people can insult the Ultimate Warrior. He got a push and he got over. There's lots of people that Ryback had a huge push and he never got over. People have practically forgot about him. Someone doesn't like Goldberg. Would I box on the Jake Paul's undercard? Well, Matt Cardona would be a very easy fight. That'd be extremely easy. But I am beyond the point of not fighting for money. Because as I said, I was a bouncer. I've said this a million times. From 2001 to 2018, I was a bouncer. And I was also in the security industry doing like mall and concert security, as well as other types of security through all those years, probably even to 2019, 2020 in security. So I've been attacked a lot for very little money. And I've also had probably over 1,000 amateur wrestling matches, probably over 1,000 pro wrestling matches. And I wrestled a very physical style. 3 kickboxing matches. And I trained in MMA and grappling for several years. So I don't think at this point I should be doing much more than what I'm best at, which is running a YouTube channel and interviewing people, because that's what I've had my most success at. But if someone wants to pay me $100,000 American or more than that to be able to do nothing but train for 8 weeks to box on a Jake Paul undercard, why not? Of course I would do that. But I wouldn't do it for free. And I wouldn't do it unless I could do nothing but train. Because it costs a lot of money to train and you need to train. Like, depends how long you go, but even a 4-round fight can be pretty exhausting. Cryan wants Austin versus Cena. Could happen, but it really seems like it's going to be Jake Paul against Cena. Andrew fell asleep during WoW. Don B did not like Goldberg. Kurt Butler says Abdullah is a piece of shit in real life. Yeah, he is. I would say that. Supposedly his wife finally divorced him recently. He hasn't lived with his wife for 10 years. So if you're wondering why he hasn't been begging for money lately, apparently he's got alimony now. And his wife was in charge of their money. So apparently a divorce settlement occurred. Big Willie says, would I wrestle Andrade? He's another one of these guys that recently had like a minor injury and took time off. I don't like wrestling anymore. I have no interest in wrestling unless there's a huge amount of money at stake. Andrew says pay-per-view should be 3 hours top. I agree. B40 says Austin Punk and The Rock versus Roman, or the Usos in a 6-man tag. I don't know if it's a 6-man tag. I could see them doing that, but I don't think it would be as interesting as a one-on-one match. Mr. Showbiz Guy, they're doing 2 nights of WrestleMania, so they need to fill that place for both nights. From what I understand, there's about 50,000 tickets sold for each night. And I don't know how much the arena sold, but they also need to have good cards each night. What about, I'm sure it's talking about AEW with all their flippy guys. Don B likes the pizza guy. Someone's laughing at Austin versus Punk. B40 says today's wrestlers are weak mentally. Yes, they are. I mean, it must be nice for Nick Aldis to get paid to sit at home to just bash the company that pushed him. I wish I could. Could you guys, any of you guys, quit your real jobs and just sit at home and get paid for 2 months, but publicly insult them? Most people are lucky if they get 2 weeks severance pay if they quit. These people, like, I wonder what type of a real job Nick Aldis would have in real life. He may very well have to get one of these years. Any chance of a Mark Lewin shoot interview? Possibly. Mitch Miller, another Vampiro shoot interview? I don't know. Apparently, after he did mine, he went on a podcast with people that didn't like me because they saw me as competition, and they led him to bash me. And I believe their channel's shut down now because they were violating YouTube policies. But, like, as I said, I don't give people paydays that bash me, and I know he may have been led to do that, but I used him in Great North Wrestling before, and then I gave him a shoot interview pay. So for him to be led by a couple of clowns that no one even watches, that I get more views in a total month than those people ever got, and now they don't even exist. I mean, that was a mistake. I could see why people don't like Vampiro from that. I'm not saying I hate him. I was still a fan of him, but I just don't want to give him another payday. The Howling Madness is world slapping entertainment. What's my favorite grunge band? Nirvana, which I recently, for about the 5th time, watched Kurt Cobain's last interview. Dante, quit whining, Bret Hart. Yes. Chris Norman likes all of the Mario Mancini interviews. Mitch, yeah, there is going to be some UFO interviews coming up, actually. I have been working on them. Bubba Booey says, Bobo Booey says 2000 is when Bill injured Bret. So 22 years ago. We're almost 2023. And Bret is a multimillionaire. He could actually be using his time to try and get the best treatments out there to treat the concussions that NFL players are getting done, and like Bryan Danielson had stuff done as well. But you want to harp on something that was an accident? I don't know. Whatever. Yes, Mike, thank you for that. And I recently reached 243,000 subscribers too, but it's you guys that gave it to me. It's you fans. So I truly thank you for your support. Don B bringing up Mantar. Peace and love. I think full gear is happening now. Eric, Bobby Fish, I think I told you I drove him. I've said this story before. At a Harley race camp in 2008. I think I drove him to the airport from Eldon, Missouri to Kansas City. He needed a ride or something. And my flight, for whatever reason, was also that night around a similar time. So I don't remember what year that was, early 2000s, before he made it. He was in Noah. He was in Japan at that point, but he wasn't in WWE. He was nice. What about likes the Mario interviews? Mitch likes the Vampiro one. Go look at it. Mike, I would do a Typhoon one. Chris says Bret's still stuck on Montreal 25 years later. Yeah. Scotty Too Hotty interview. John Paz did one of him on here, and I don't recall that it got many hits. Maybe. Where's the $1 billion man, Bill? I don't know. Actually, the only one that really still tips on here, I'll thank everyone that paid towards Piper's medical fund. I'll actually mention them now because I got over $200, which helped towards her bill. But Mike D is the only one that regularly tips on here. It seems like the regular tipper guys disappeared. But Anthony Martinez, AJ Zebinfield, Carl Gregory, Michael Clark, great guy, Michael Shea, John Wilburn, Joseph Visacaro, Marcus Faulkner, Jack Kirby, and my parents, Laura and Gwen Nicholson, threw something in there for their granddaughter Piper. So I just wanted to shout them all out. Mitch, yeah, I wrestled Haku twice. Mike D, Maria Davis, and Carlos Ray, they passed away, I believe. They're dead. Let's give them a 10-bell salute. No, I don't know. But to be honest, I'm not the type that begs for tips. I really appreciate all your tips, but better than tips is to become a channel member, because if you pay the $1.99 a month, you actually get featured some of the time on the main page. Then you're regularly helping the channel and helping me get interviews. So if we had more for the people that want more of the big interviews, those people cost money. So become a channel member. But I'm not the type that begs. I'm happy enough that you guys just watch. I did throw out there about Piper's medical fund because it's damn expensive for vet bills. And unlike some people think, I am not rich. A lot of people think I'm completely loaded, and that YouTube pays a lot more than it actually does. So I appreciate any little bits. Mustafa Ali, never watched his match. Did I like Vince Russo's booking? Some of it was good, some of it was bad. It seemed like his WWE run was his best run. He was booking when Raw had its all-time highest rating in the 8s, and his WCW ratings were better than wrestling's at now, but I do know he'd also booked some stuff I didn't like. But I actually think after all these years now, he would be better than he was 20 years ago because he's learned a lot since then. I think he'd be a great guy to have. He probably wouldn't even take the job, but a great guy to have as part of their booking team, just to throw ideas out there. Because the people that they get now from TV, and I think what is it, Mick Foley's son or daughter, who's just a kid, like maybe late teens, early 20s in there. I don't see any harm in putting Vince Russo on their 40 person booking team, just to get some ideas out there from a guy that at one point in time had some of the best ideas in wrestling. But Russo might not even want to do it. The last time I talked to Honky Tonk Man was 2021 when I was in Phoenix, and I asked him if he wanted to do a follow-up interview, and he said he was in the WWE Hall of Fame and he was done with wrestling and didn't want anything further to do with wrestling. And I haven't seen him do anything in wrestling since then, so I can only say he was telling the truth. Would I participate in Dana's Slap League? No. It would have to be a very high price because, as I said, I don't want to. I make more money with my brain than I ever did with my brawn. So why I would want concussions? Why would I ever want to be in any type of situation where I can at least put my hands up or shoot on somebody? Not my type of thing. But I'll close this off by showing a video of my cute little dog, since I can't pick her up today. But keep her in your prayers, and again, thanks to the people that helped towards her GoFundMe. Say hi to the people watching the Wrestling Observer review. You're a good girl. You're improving.
You're tough. You're just like the real Roddy Piper. You're a good girl. Love you.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match